All right, so I just wanted to go through not all the parts of this test, but I wanted to go through some of the parts of this test. Yeah, just because these, especially the secondary chords, we're going to be using them from now until the end of your theory. Not until the end of time, but until the end of your theory. So the very first one, I had mentioned this originally when we started studying secondary leading tone chords, and that is you got to be very, very careful about calculating the root of the chords you're trying to spell. In the first one, a 7 diminished 6 of 5, I think most everyone understands that the root of a 5 chord in A major is E, but then you got to calculate what is the leading tone to E. Yeah, it's not D. It's D sharp. And that's when, if you had the wrong root, then you couldn't get credit for that chord. You missed all the points. So when D sharp is the root, the correct answer is D sharp, F sharp, and A. Not D natural, F natural, and A flat. The next one, good old E minor, we were just talking about that in prior class. A lot more people got this one correct. 5, 4, 2 of 4 in the key. The root of a 4 chord in this key is A. The dominant of A, the fifth above A, is E. So that's the root of the chord. And we need to put it in third inversion, so it turns out to be an E, G sharp, E, D chord with the D on the bottom. The D on the bottom. The next, I'll do the next section too, since there's just a few chords. The chord that you are given is, looks like A, C sharp, E, G. That is a dominant 7th chord, a major minor 7th chord. I think I had a few answers like this. If it's got a chromatic pitch in it, it's not going to be some string chord like that. I mean, one of the main focuses of this class, this unit I should say, was the fact that it's a secondary chord. So really it's probably a 5, 6, 5, probably 2. Because A is the dominant of D, and D would be a 2 chord in this key. Okay, the last one on this section, we were in F sharp minor. And we have this chord, we have A sharp, we have C sharp because of the key signature, E, and then we have G natural. What type of 7th chord is that? That is a fully diminished 7th chord. It's got chromatic pitches in it. Don't fit in the key, so it's going to be, and it's in root position. If the root of this leading tone chord is A sharp, what is A sharp the leading tone to? B. And a B would support what Roman numeral chord in this key? It would support a 4 chord. Okay. The part writing, I don't know, I'm still confused, especially when we get to the cadence. Not everybody did this, but I'm still confused why we can't remember to take the 7th of our 7th chord down by step. Is there a reason? I mean, some people did, but I would say over half the class didn't do that, and I don't know why. Can you help me understand why? The next page of the test, the shorter musical example on top, that one did not modulate. The longer example on the bottom, the Mozart example, did modulate. And the pivot chord was in measure 5. It says it's the second half of measure 5. That is a 6-chord in first inversion in the old key of D, and it's a 2-chord in first inversion in the new key of A. And yeah. Oh, and by the way, do you see the cadence in measure 4? Can anyone tell me why it's 1, 6, 4 to 5 and not 5, 6? Any ideas? Do you see the lowest note in measure 4? Is it A? Do you see how that's a half note? And it lasts for 2 beats. So the first chord is 1, 6, 4, and the second chord is A, C sharp, E with A on the bottom. That's a root position 5. Not a first inversion 5. Then on the last page, let me go through just a few things here. The 5 closely related keys to A major, you could write them in any order. It would be D major, E major, F sharp minor, D minor, and C sharp minor. And again, I don't know if few people were going too fast in this section. And I don't know, I think I was getting F minors, I was getting C minors, or I think I had a student or two think that the key given there was A flat major, and so all the closely related keys were off. But it says A major. The next one, F minor. The closely related keys to F minor in any order are A flat major, E flat major, D flat major, C minor, and B flat minor. And again, I don't know if some people were going a little fast, but I got a few D minors instead of B flat minors, which is on a completely different side of the circle of fifths. So now the pivot chord chart between A flat major and C minor. I think everyone got the chords of the first key just fine. And thankfully nobody misaligned the chords for the new key. I think everyone had them aligned right where you start one here. But you got to remember, some people got to remember that we use the natural form of the minor scale to generate these chord qualities. So that means we use a minor 5 in a pivot chord chart. Use a minor 5. And we use also a major 7 in a pivot chord chart for minor keys. Then these two are not the same quality in this column, so I could cross this column out. These two are not the same, so cross this one out. And these two are not the same, so I cross this one out. Now, I can understand why someone would circle 1 to 6. That's a fine pivot chord, and it would work fine. But do you see how this one's a little smoother because both of the Roman numerals in both of the keys are predominant in function? This is a 6 chord, which is in the old key, that's predominant in function. This is a 4 chord in the new key, which is predominant in function. And when you have a pivot chord that's predominant in function in both keys, that's the ultimate, most supreme, smooth, best pivot chord to circle in a pivot chord chart. The last section there, section 6, I needed you to tell me that there were 3 signal pitches that you should find between going from the key of G minor to the key of C minor. First of all, you can think of the difference between the two keys' key signatures. And G minor has B flat in its key signature. C minor has B natural. So B natural would be one signal to let us know we're moving into C minor. The absence of the T in the old key, G minor, F sharp, the absence of that means it would revert, it would not be raised, it would be F natural. F natural. And then T of, let's see here, what did I miss here? G minor to C minor. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The difference between the two key signatures is A flat in this key. That's what I meant to say. G minor doesn't have A flat in its key signature, but C minor does. That's what I meant to say. F natural we get because of the absence of T in the old key, and B natural we get because that is T of the new key. So those would be the three signal pitches. The three signal pitches. And for anyone that tried the optional bonus question, I tried to give extra credit where I could. The major key that you're supposed to find is B major. B major is the key. So B major's relative minor is G sharp minor. The parallel minor is B minor, and the enharmonically equivalent key is C flat major. C flat major. So, and again, this is just one test out of 3 in this class. I don't know, when I was grading the test, I was thinking, oh, you guys know this stuff a little better. So I don't know what happened. Was it just like an off day, or did you not get enough sleep, or is it? I mean, it could be because of the pandemic. I understand. I just thought that at least in some of these sections, I thought that there would be less points missed. I guess that's what I was thinking. So I was just a little bit confused because I'm almost positive you guys know this stuff. So, anyways, I won't take too long with this, but I mean, if you can help me understand, or you want to talk to me or let me know, like, what do you think happened, or just clue me in so I'm aware. I can't read your minds, and if I can get the overall mood or the sense of what's going on in the class, student-wise, from your perspective, that helps me. That helps me too. It does. Okay, so let me come around and pick this back up, and then we'll move on to what we're going to be getting for this next unit. Thank you, sir. Are you ready? Okay. All right. Now, today, what I'd like to, I'll actually do better than tell you what I'd like to do today. I think I owe you another assignment sheet for this upcoming unit. And it all fits on one side of a piece of paper, so you can see quickly when the next test is scheduled for. Nothing on the back, and let me give these to you. And this will take us through the next, almost the next month. So today, what I'd like to do in order to prepare us for the next main topic, I'd like to review harmonic progression and just a little bit about secondary chords, not a whole lot. And then the first topic that I'd like to get into this unit is I'd like to teach you how to use secondary chords in harmonic progressions. In other words, I'd like you to be able to know how to write them in harmonic progressions, to know what kind of chords can come before secondary chords, and of course the chords that can come after them so you can use them properly and correctly in a harmonic progression. That will take us up through just the next 3 or 4 classes. And then after that, we're going to learn 2 more ways to modulate or change key. One of which is just very quick and easy, there's nothing to it. The other of which is a little more involved, and that'll take us a little longer. And then finally, after that, so starting around Friday, October 9th, the last main topic of this unit is harmonic sequences. And I always find those to be quite entertaining and a lot of fun. And well, you'll get them, and I think you'll like them when we get there. So that's kind of the plan for the next month or so. And you can see that you have no homework due for today, so that's a good thing. And I'll be giving you one handout for homework for Friday. And I think it's just one side of a sheet of paper, so it's not too much. But you should have all you need to be able to complete that for next class. Okay, so hang on to that Unit 2 assignment sheet. You can cross out the old one or get rid of the old one so you don't confuse the two. And you can see tentatively our next test is scheduled for right around Friday, October 23rd. October 23rd. I believe the Friday after that is Halloween Eve. So I think it kind of was nice. I thought it was nice that it turned out that you don't have a test on Halloween Eve. You get it done before that. Okay. How much time we got? Okay, good. So let's go back to the good old days when we learned a little bit about the basics of harmonic progression. And I think this was originally early stages of your Theory 2 education, your Theory 2 semester. And I had given you a handout. You don't have to have it now. But I had given you a handout with a circular diagram that shows the 3 functions: tonic, predominant, and dominant. So let me see if I can reproduce a little of that diagram right here. So we have the tonic function chords. Do you remember what those are? 1 and 6. And then we have the predominant function chords. I'm going to make a really good box here. And what are the 3 main predominant functions? 2, 4, and 6, right? And then we had over here, sorry, this circle has been, it's really bad. We had over here dominant function chords. And obviously one of them is 5, or 5, 7. Another dominant functioning group of chords is cadential 6, 4 to 5. And then what is that other, really weak, but it still has a dominant function to it? What chord is that? 7, yeah. Because it contains the leading tone. Okay. And we learned that normal, traditional, functional, good, well-formed type progressions will move this way or clockwise around this diagram. So we always start with a tonic chord. Then if you want a well-formed progression, you use a predominant chord, or one or more, I should say, predominant chords. Then after that, you move to the dominant area of your phrase and use one or more of these chords, and then finally get back to a tonic chord. And we said that if you make use of at least one chord from each of these 3 function categories, and you use them in the clockwise order, that you would get what's called a well-formed progression. Well-formed progression. Okay, I think I got all of those chords in there. Yeah. All right, let me make a little more space. 2, 4, 6. We know that the 2 chord, the 4 chord, and the 6 chord, they are your standard predominant chords. They are diatonic predominant chords. That means they fit and belong in whatever key you're working in. You don't need any special accidentals or other pitches like that. But I may have mentioned this to a few people in passing, but I don't think we officially got to this. And that is, well, let's think about all these chromatic or secondary chords that we know now that could come before a 5 or come before a dominant. Couldn't we have wouldn't a predominant therefore be something like a 5 of a 5? Okay, because 5 of 5 likes to go to 5. So we could have, these are new, you know, we could have a 5 or a 5/7 of 5. That's certainly a predominant functioning chord. And we could have any of the secondary leading tone chords of 5 as well, right? Such as these. The 7 diminished 6 is the triad of 5. 7.5 diminished 7 of 5, or 7 fully diminished 7 of 5. Those are all predominant in function because just what the function may mean, they would come before the dominant chord in the phrase. Okay. Any of these could come before a 5. Any of these could come before the 1, 6, 4 to 5 combination. You probably wouldn't have these come before this. This is a little anomaly, it's a weaker one. But I don't know how many progressions I've seen and analyzed in music where you have secondary of 5, and then you either go right to 5 or you go to 1, 6, 4, 5. That combination. It's very common. Very common in music. Okay? Okay. So, I guess as we progress further in this class, in the next several classes, we're going to see that these are definitely usable in a progression right before some kind of dominant function or dominant area function of a phrase. Let's see if we can go ahead and use one or put one in. For instance, let's start in the key of, or use the key of C major as an easy example. And I'll start with the 1. And let's put, let's see here. Give me one of the 3 diatonic predominants first to put into this progression we're writing. 4, okay. Now, give me one of the chromatic predominants, one of those over there. Which one would you like to use? Let's use, can we use, how about 7, 7 of 5? Sounds like a good one. Okay. Now, do you want to go straight to 5 or do you want to do the 1, 6, 4 to 5 combo?
1, 6, 4.
Okay, 1, 6, 4 to 5 combo. And that right there would be a valid, very fine progression. If I were to label or analyze the functions of these chords, you can see that it works in the correct clockwise fashion. For instance, there's your tonic function. Right here, I should use a different color, but that much is your predominant function, those 2 chords, followed by your dominant function, and then your tonic function again, and progression. I wish this, well, it did be backwards, but I do kind of wish this piano was turned around. Maybe if I play the progression way up here, you can see the board from here. So we have, it's going to be really high. We got a 1 chord, and then we got a 4 chord, and then we have 7 diminished 7 of 5, and that would lead nicely into generally speaking, if you use more than one predominant in your progression that you're writing, if you use more than one, then I talked before about how the 6th chord is the weakest one, the 4th chord is medium strength predominant, and the 2 is the stronger, or the strongest of these 3. So if you use more than one, I would use any of these, I would use this one first, then this one, and then this one. But when you compare diatonic predominance to chromatic predominance, I would use any of these before you use the chromatic one, because these give you much more strength and intensity. So that's why I use the diatonic one before. I wouldn't write 7 diminished 7 to 5 going to regular 4. I wouldn't do that because that kind of weakens. As you're going through the progression, you get a weaker sense of predominant, if that makes any sense. But these runs right here, these are the strongest because they have chromatic pitches in them. All right, now, with that said, let me give you a handout that we can work on together here in class. And we're not going to go through the entire handout, but we will be able to hopefully look at a couple of these examples. So take one of these. We'll just get a little practice of analysis. All right, so let's maybe skip number 1 completely. Let's go to the second one there, number 2. See if I can find my copy. What is the heading for number 2? Well-formed progression, right? Tonic, predominant, dominant, tonic. Do I have 4 blanks underneath number 2? Here. Who can tell me the key of this example? E-flat major, right? And really it turns out to be, I mean, there's a few nuances, but I mean, if you just analyze basically a 1 chord for every 2 bars, you'll have the passage analyzed in enough detail to understand the overall progression there. So without getting into too much detail, what do you think the first chord is in that blank? 1. Yeah, I would put a capital 1 in there for E-flat major. Now, if you look at the 3rd and 4th full measure, they're all the same chord. We've got A-flat on the bottom, C, E-flat, and F up above. First of all, is that one of these chromatic chords? No, I don't think so. There's no accidentals in that one. So it's going to be a regular, looks like it's going to be a regular predominant. Does anyone want to take a stab at what F, A flat, C, E flat is in the key of E flat? It's a 2 chord. It's actually a 7th chord in first inversion. So it's technically a 2, 6, 5. Remember those wonderful, lovely chords? Right, and 2, 7 is a predominant, just like a 2 chord is. But that chord right there is just a 2, 6, 5. It's a diatonic 7th chord. Then the next blank, I would just fill in with a 5, 7. And then the last measure and a half of the last blank, I would just complete it with a 1 chord. Now, take a look at the functions of those chords. Is the first chord not a tonic function? And what would the 2, 6, 5 be? What function? TD or PD? PD, right? and then you have a 5/7 next, which is dominant, followed by tonic. That's an example of a well-formed progression. And the only reason I'm taking a little bit of time with this is because I think it's been a long time since we've talked about that function chart. Seems like eons ago. Plus, I never did, at that time, I never did tell you about those chromatic chords, because at the beginning of Theory 2, you'd be like, that's it, I'm out of here. Right, I'm not dealing with those kinds of things. So, there's just a little, number 2 in the middle of this page. It's just a little nice, easy, what I think, simple review of well-formed progression: tonic, predominant, dominant, and tonic. Now, let's take a look at the third example, the one on the bottom of the page. Okay. By the way, none of the examples on this handout modulate. Okay. They all just stay, starting key is the same key throughout each of these examples. You know what, since I've got this up here, what I want to do is, instead of trying to plink that example number 3 out on the piano, I want to see if we can hear it from YouTube. Let's see if I get any success. Probably a commercial. I wish I could write phrases. I don't think it could be improved upon. It's just really good. It's just simple and nice. Now, this is something we could not have done before the first unit. I would like you to look, just glance at this passage, and I want you to take 2 seconds and tell me there is one secondary chord in this passage, and I want you to tell me where it is. Just 2 seconds. Can you spot it? What gives it away?
The accident.
The accident, that's right. Isn't that amazing? Wow, you guys are super speed analyzers. You know that in this whole entire 8-measure, I guess it's a period technically, and that there's one chromatic chord, you know, you can spot it exactly. It just takes you 2 seconds. And you know what gives it away? It's that accidental in the bass. To me, that is to me, that shows me that you're maturing in terms of your analysis, your theory abilities, that kind of thing. That shows maturity. Okay. Now, the question is, we got to analyze that secondary chord. First of all, who can tell me the key of this passage? D major, right? Okay. All right, D major. Now, there is one note missing in that very brief chromatic chord, and that chromatic chord only lasts for an 8th note. But there is one tone missing, and the tone that's missing from that chord is a B natural, a B. How would we analyze G sharp, the missing B, D, and F sharp? Because the F is sharp due to the key signature. How could we analyze that? We couldn't do that before, but now we have the tools to be able to give that chord a name and to be able to analyze it. I don't know what to do. So these are the pitches. G sharp on the bottom, B is missing, D, and F sharp. Is that chord diminished of some kind, or is it dominant? I would say that that chord is diminished of some kind, right? So it looks like it's going to be a secondary leading tone chord. Can anyone tell me if that chord is fully diminished or half diminished? It's half diminished. That's right, half diminished. And it's in root position. So I would actually analyze that chromatic chord as this. Now, go to the root. If we're saying this is a secondary leading tone chord, we're saying G sharp is the leading tone to what? which one?
5.
Yeah, it's leading tone to A, and A is the root of the 5 chord. So that means this must be analyzed as a 7 after the next 7.5. Right, that's what secondary leading tone chords are all about. That's why they exist. They are built on the leading tone to the root of the next chord to emphasize or give the next chord a little more zest sounding. Right? Okay. Now, yeah, let's just continue doing this. What is the very next chord after the chromatic chord in D major? Right, 164, right? Does Haydn get an F because he didn't take this chord directly to a 5? No. Haydn knows what he's doing. What do you expect is going to be the chord after the 164? Probably a 5, and it is a 5. And the ends of 1. So, again, we're not going to analyze the entire passage, but the last, 4 chords of that Haydn example, this is the most interesting chord if you ask me. And then it leads very nicely into a cadence, potential 1, 6, 4, 5, 1. Well, let's see. Yeah, let's listen to this one again. I just like to do the orchestra a lot better than just the piano playing it. So, and pay attention. I know it's very brief, but see if you can pay attention to that chromatic chord that we just analyzed and the sound it gives to the whole passage. I need to jog that memory of yours. It's been a while since we done some of this. This is good practice. Okay. Now I know we haven't analyzed the entire passage. But let me tell you that this note right here, that high D on the downbeat of the second full measure, that is a non-chord tone. Just by looking at how that is approached and left, can anyone tell me what type of non-chord tone that is? It's a suspension, that's right. Because it's approached by the same note and left by a step down. Remember those good old rules? Okay, now I need you to do a little more thinking and calculation. What kind of suspension is it? And how do you figure out what kind of suspension it is? Say again?
Is it a 7/6?
It is. It's a 7/6 suspension. And I'm assuming that you got it by doing this. You calculate the interval that the suspended note forms above the bass, the lowest note. Isn't the lowest note an E? So E up to D is a 7th. And then the resolution note, what interval does that create? Also above that same bass. E up to C sharp is a 6th. So it is a 7/6 suspension. I know normally we don't like to think about these kinds of things, but you know, in my Theory 1 class right now, they're just starting to learn intervals. And so they need to know intervals so they can eventually analyze suspensions as 7/6, 4/3, 9/8 or 2/3. What about, let me find another one. Oh, this is a good one. This one right here. See that high G in the fourth full measure? That is a non-chord tone. What kind of non-chord tone is it on the downbeat of the fourth full measure? Suspension. Now, somebody else, tell me what kind of suspension is that one? 4/3. That's right. Very good. Very good. Okay. Oops. I'll tell you right now that this, here we go. This E, kind of tucked away in the alto, middle, tenor register right there, that E on the downbeat, that is a non-chord tone. Based on how it's approached and how it's left, what type of non-chord tone is that one? Not an anticipation. It's a retardation, the opposite of a suspension. It's approached by the same note and it's left by a step up. So we could just do quickly a few more. How about this high A right here on the downbeat of this measure? That is a That is a suspension. Can anyone tell me what kind of suspension this A makes with the bass? 9/8 suspension. Good. And let's see, how about, this one's really easy. How about this A right here? That's a non-chord tone. What would you call it? Passing tone. What about this F sharp right there? It's a non-chord tone. What would you call it? Passing tone. That's right. And then finally, you know we're in D major here, and we've analyzed the last chords. What type of cadence do I have in the last measure? It is. It's a PAC, perfect authentic cadence. Why? Because the 5 and the 1 are in group position, and because I have do in the highest voice over the last chord. So I know these are things that you've learned, but these are things that I think are helpful. We need to review because I don't want you to forget about this as we go forward. This is still theory, right? We can't lose the basics of theory. Just so you know, there's a cadence right. Let's see here. There's a cadence right here in this measure. Can anyone? I know we didn't analyze it, but let me tell you. This chord right here in the previous bar is a 5/6 or 5/6/5, and then you have a 1 right here. What type of cadence is that? 5/6/5 to 1. Imperfect authentic cadence, right? Imperfect authentic. So what happens now when you have two phrases and one of them ends with a slightly weaker imperfect authentic cadence and the last one ends with a perfect authentic cadence, a stronger one? What do those two phrases form?
A double period.
Not a double period, just a regular period. You remember these things? Oh yeah, okay. Well, I think that's all the time we have for today. But yeah, these things don't go away. So, what I need to do before you leave is I need to give you your assignment for Friday. Your assignment is one side of a sheet of handout to fill out. It'll basically be a little chord spelling and a little analysis. Hey, look, we got notes. I like that. Yeah. There you go. All right, thank you guys. We'll see you Friday.